Today I'm going to be talking about using mobile apps creatively to meet therapy goals. I am super excited about this topic because I'm very passionate about technology and the positive impact it can have on kids in the therapy room. And also because I believe that speech pathologists are creative and resourceful. And I thought it'd be fun to explore the different ways we can use the apps that are already on your iPad to treat goals that you may not have previously thought to use them for to treat. So we will go ahead and get started. Let's see here. Okay, so before we go any further, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about myself. I am a mom of 4 awesome kids, and my husband Chris also works with me in my business. He's the one that makes all my graphics and makes everything look pretty. So that is fun. Anyway, he's awesome. He's a huge support to me, and we have a lot of fun working together. We live in Utah, and a couple weeks ago, we had the opportunity to go to Northern California to see the Redwood Forest for the first time. So if you are from California, you are so lucky because you live in such a beautiful place. And if you haven't been to see the Redwoods, I would encourage you to do so because it's absolutely beautiful. I've been a speech pathologist for almost 17 years now, and like Sarah and Lisa said, I started Mommy Speech Therapy back in 2007. And I am also the creator of the Little Bee Speech apps. So as a financial disclosure, I do receive income from Little Bee Speech, from the sales of Little Bee Speech apps. And today I will be using examples from Little Bee Speech apps to show you how to adapt apps to treat language goals. Okay, so for any of you that might be hesitant about using technology in the therapy room, I wanted to share this quote with you. I thought it was really awesome. It says, "Technology will not replace great teachers, but technology in the hands of great teachers can be transformational." And I wanted to share that with you because apps are therapy tools. They're not there just to entertain kids, but when used correctly, they can make you more productive and more efficient as speech pathologists, and kids can actually make great gains at a faster rate. So I think it's important to take the time to get to know your apps and the technology that you have so you can be as efficient and productive as possible. Okay, so before we go into how to adapt apps to meet language goals, we're going to talk about how to choose educationally relevant mobile apps. And this is just a list that I put together when I look at an app, what I'm looking for. So it is subjective, and everybody may answer differently when they're looking at an individual app. But let's just go through and see what I have. You also have this list on your handouts if you have printed off your handouts. This will be a great resource for you as you're trying to choose good apps for your therapy room. The first question I wanted to ask is the app educational? When I think about educational and I'm looking at an app, I want to know if, number one, it's going to be able to treat or target a therapy goal, and if it can target more than one therapy goal, even better. I also want to know, does it collect data, and is the data easy to share? And are there instructions or video tutorials that address how to use the app? This is very helpful because sometimes developers will put a lot more features into the app that you may not be aware of that can make you more productive and help you make that app work for all kinds of kids that you're working with. So take time to watch the video tutorials if the developers have offered them. It will help you become a lot more proficient at the app. I also look at the developer's website to see what additional information they might have about the app. And sometimes they have frequently asked questions that other people have already asked that I might be able to, that I may have as well, and I can look there and get some of the answers to some of the questions that I might have. And then I also want to know if the concept of the app is based on evidence-based practices. Okay, so the next thing I want to know is the app relevant? When I think about that, I'm looking for an app that has received a lot of positive reviews in the App Store, and I'm also interested in looking at what the negative reviews were as well, and if they apply to me. For example, Articulation Station was created to treat articulation and phonological disorders. And one time we received a 1-star review that said, this is not an alphabet app. Now, if you are looking for an alphabet app, then that review would be valid and it would apply to you. If you are looking for an app to treat articulation and phonological disorders, then you would realize that that review is not valid. So that's just something that you want to look at. The next place I would look is, does the app get positive reviews on other app review sites and from your colleagues and friends? I definitely think that your colleagues and friends can offer a lot of insight to you, and sometimes I think that they are more honest than anybody else. When you look at an app review site, you want to make sure you look to find out if the app was reviewed, if it was given to the reviewer, and what connection that they have to the app developer, so you make sure that you're getting an honest review. And then the last thing is, does the developer have a history of maintaining and updating the app? This is important because technology is always changing so fast. And I'm sure you all feel this way. It's hard to keep up with all the new operating systems that are coming out, and it can be kind of scary sometimes to update to the newest operating system for fear that some of your apps might crash. And this is why you want to find a developer that is maintaining and updating their apps, to make sure they are staying on top of the latest operating systems, so that your app will continue to function and work well. Okay, this one is, this question I want to know is, does the app fit your mobile needs? Now, when you're looking at apps and or devices to try to choose to use in your therapy room, I would recommend that you start, actually, even before you choose your mobile device, if you can, to determine what apps you want to use in your therapy room, and which apps you feel like would be the most beneficial and the most productive for you. Because not every app is offered on both Apple and Android, you want to make sure that you choose a device that's going to be compatible with the apps that you want to use. Now, some people, that might sound backwards. Some people, typically people choose the device first, and devices are amazing with what they can do, but as far as being a speech pathologist and using it as a therapy tool, you have to remember that it's the apps that go on the device that are really going to make the difference in your therapy room. So you might want to look at which apps you're interested in and what devices are offered on. The next question is your device compatible with the operating system the app was developed for? To give you an example, when Articulation Station first came out, it was developed, I can't remember the operating system it was developed for, but it was compatible with iPad 1. When we developed Articulation Test Center, it was a few years later, and the iPad 1, the operating system that it goes up to is 5.1, and Articulation Test Center was developed for 6.0. So if you are still on a really old device, there's going to be some apps you're not going to have access to. So that's something that you want to be aware of as well. And the last question is, can the app you run without an internet connection? That's important because if you are a speech pathologist that is traveling to different homes in rural areas, you may not always have an internet connection. And you want to make sure that you're going to have access to your therapy tools at all times. Okay, and this last section is, does the app have good usability? And again, this can be very subjective, but for me, when I'm looking at an app, I'm looking for something that is easy to use. That's not going to take a lot of time for me to get to know. I want to know if the user experience is pleasant, because I'm going to be using it a lot, and if it's engaging and motivating to my kids, because that's going to make a big difference in the therapy room. And I also want to know if it is customizable. So can I add custom images or make custom lists or do different things that will allow me to use it for more, to make it fit the needs of the child that I'm working with, rather than making the child fit the app. And I also love it when there's a free or light version to try, so that I can play around with the app before I invest my money in it. And I want to know if it is free of ads or distracting pop-ups, because I don't want to have those distracting pop-ups when I'm in a therapy session with a kiddo. I also appreciate if the developer has good customer service. Coming from the developer's perspective, I want you guys to know that developers want you to be successful when you're using their apps. And if you write to us with questions or suggestions or whatever, then we'll do our very best to get back to you as quickly as possible. And when I know that, when I've reached out to developer and they get back to me, I know that they have my best interest in mind, and I really appreciate that. This next question is probably the most important question you can ask yourself when you're looking at an app, and that is, will it make you more productive? I want you to think about the way you do therapy, and if this can either save you time in some way or engage the students more so that you can get them to participate and do more in therapy, then that's going to make the difference. If it can help you improve your communication between the speech room and the home environment, then that will help as well. So those are just things to think about when you are choosing an app. This next quote I loved. It says, "It doesn't matter how many resources or apps you have, if you don't know how to use them, it will never be enough." And so I wanted to share this with you to just, again, encourage you to get to know the apps that you have. Remember that they're therapy tools, and the better you know them, the more efficient and productive you're going to be able to be with them. Okay, so this is the fun part. We're going to start talking about how to take another look at the apps that you have and the goals that you're targeting with those apps. And I want you to think, as I'm showing you my ideas to adapt Articulation Station to meet language goals, as well as goals for articulation and intelligibility, I want you to think about the apps that you are using and how you might be able to adapt them to meet other goals. And when I decided to do this, I looked for some sample goals online, and I found some goals from Montgomery County Public Schools that are on the ASHA website. The link is on the handout that you got if you're interested in going and looking at those goals. And then I adapted those just a little bit so that they would work with the app that I'm using, the apps that I will be using. So the first goal that we're going to talk about is categories. And the goal is the student will label a picture and identify the category it belongs to and say a carrier phrase to label the category. The blank is a toy. Okay, so here in this example, you can see that I'm using Articulation Station. I have created a custom list called Categories for Food, Animals, and Clothing. And I have included in your handout carrier phrase cards for categories that you can use with the app. So in this example, you can see that I have a carrier phrase card for food. The idea is that the child will say, "The peach is a food." Now I've placed a penny over the word "are" since my word strips are not as dynamic as an app, and I can't quickly change from is or are on the fly depending on whether the word is plural or not. So I decided to just use a penny. You could use any kind of reinforcer, an M&M or a marshmallow, and maybe it's kind of fun. The child can earn little rewards along the way. So let me show you. In this video right here, you'll get to see my daughter Scarlett using these category word strips to label the categories.
Okay, Scarlett, what category is the sheep in?
Taylor. Well, sheep is an animal.
Good job. Okay, what do you get? Good job. Can you go to the next one? Okay. Tell me what category the popcorn is in.
The popcorn is a food.
Good job. Okay, how'd you do? Okay, go to the next one. All right, what category are the slippers in?
glasses are something you wear.
Good job, you did it.
Okay, thank you. That was really fun to do with Scarlett. All right, so here in Articulation Station, I'm going to show you how to make a custom list. So you can do it one of two ways. You can go into multiple sounds at the bottom, and then you can choose any group of sounds that you want to. So we'll do P, B, and M initial, and then you tap this Edit Words List button right there. And then when that comes in, you can deselect all the words and then go and put in only the words that you want in your list. So you can make a list for anything. After you've created your list, you hit Save List, and you can name your list. I'll show you some of the lists that I have created. I've created lists for animals, asking WH questions, describing food, function, instruments, something that you wear. The nice thing is when you name a list and you take data on that list, you can see that it says instruments over on the right-hand corner, and it will record all of your data in your results as instruments. So that's kind of neat. And you can see specifically which instruments that they don't know. You can also take your sentence strip that you have if you're going to start by just teaching instruments, and you can have them read this sentence every single time. So you could say, the trumpet is an instrument. Once you've taught the instruments, you can go back and make another list and multiple sounds if you want to target multiple categories. The other thing that you want to do, or another way that you can make a custom list, is to open up an individual sound program. We'll go to P and words, flashcards, and then tap your word list again in the bottom right-hand corner. And you can, again, make another list right here. And then you can save your list. You can name it whatever you want. We're going to cancel that, and I'm going to show you my list here. Here you can see this is where I had the list for categories of food, animals, and clothing that I was using with Scarlett. Then you can tap Begin, and here you can see you've got the trumpet and the leopard and the cupcake. And she can just go through and label each one of these for naming your categories. So that is how you make custom lists. So our next goal is for describing. The next goal is for describing. This goal is the student will meaningfully use X-word sentences to describe a picture with no more than one prompt or reminder. Sentences will be grammatically correct and meaningful to the context. So I will show you how I adapted this. So I have in your handout, you're going to find cards for describing. Oops, excuse me, sorry. Okay, so in your handout, you're going to find cards for describing. And you can see here in this specific example that I have a card for function. So what is it used for? Oh my goodness, I keep going back. Okay, so, and I also made a custom list here called describing pictures so that I can keep track of those scores here as well. So here in this video, you can see Scarlett using the describing cards to describe some pictures.
Okay, draw a card. Let's see what it says.
What does it taste like?
What does it taste like? Okay, can you tell me, what does pumpkin pie taste like?
Bird yummy. And so that tastes like pumpkins. So tastes well, crunchy apples.
Crunchy, the crust is crunchy?
Yes.
Oh, good, good job. Okay, how do you think you did? You did good. You can give yourself a check. Okay, go to the next one. Okay, draw a card. This says, what is it used for?
It's used for drawing on pieces of paper.
Good. Can you sit? It's really fun to draw with.
You can draw really cool stuff on the paper with it.
Good job. Okay, give yourself a check. Let's do one more. Draw a card. So, okay, let's see what you got. This says, what does it look like?
It looks pink and kind of fun, sometimes really, really dirty. And it has bigger ears than humans do.
It does have bigger ears than humans. Good job.
There's nose that doesn't look like a human nose.
Nope. Okay, good job. Give yourself a check.
Okay, so now I'm going to show you, if you open up, we'll open up the P program again. And this time we're going to open up the phrases. We're going to go to rotating phrases. And we're going to choose, we're going to tap edit our word list again. And here the nice thing is I can look at my target words and I can take some of them out. You know, I can decide which words I want to use here. And then I can also go to my lead words. The cool thing is I can add a word here if I want to. And what I've done is I actually came in here and I added questions for describing the one, just like the ones we just did. So what category is it in? What does it feel like? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it sound like? What does it taste like? What does it go with? What is it used for? So now if I hit begin and I go into my rotating phrases, I can ask the question about the Jeep. What does it taste like? And this is kind of funny because when you use this, the kids laugh and they imagine what a Jeep might taste like. And they might come up with some really funny answers. And then you can spin it and you can see what does it sound like. And you can talk about what the Jeep sounds like, the different sounds it makes. The same thing, and the kids just have a really fun time spinning this and seeing what combinations they get, and they can work on describing the different pictures that come up. So that's a really fun way to adapt Articulation Station, again, to use it in a way for describing things. So the other thing I wanted to show you before I go on is as you're scoring, if you want to turn the scoring sounds off, you can just open up the settings right here. And you have all of these different options. So you can even hide the scoring buttons if you want. But like if we turn the scoring sounds off right here, you'll notice that as you score, there's no sound, but your score is still going up here in the top right-hand corner. Another fun thing is if you score something by mistake, you can just tap that upper right-hand corner and it will undo your last score. So that is just another fun way to add, do describing in Articulation Station. Okay, our next goal is for answering questions. The student will meaningfully use X-word sentences when answering is, are, do, does, who, what, where, when, why, how, questions about pictures and illustrations. And or stories is what I think I have here, but yeah, and or stories. Okay, so let's talk about how we did that. Okay. So here you can see in this example, I used the unique sentences in Articulation Station, and I just have question cards below it, and I flip over a question, and I'm able to ask, you know, where was the parrot perched? And the child can answer in a tree. So I'll show you how Scarlett does with this.
Scarlett, we're going to listen to the sentence. And then we're going to flip over a card and I'm going to ask you a question and I want you to answer it, okay?
Okay.
So tap the sentence. Start by tapping the sentence right here.
Pam put a penny in the pink purse.
What did Pam put in the purse?
A penny.
A penny. Good job. Give yourself a check. Okay, go to the next one. Right here. Swipe to the next card. Okay, listen to the sentence.
The parrot was perched in the tree.
Turn over the card. Where was the parrot perched?
In the tree.
In the tree. Good job. Okay, give yourself a check. Okay, go to the next one.
pasta.
Let's see what this one says. Why? Why would you put peas in the pasta?
Because it tastes good.
Because it would taste good?
Uh-huh.
I think that's a good answer. Okay, give yourself a check and we're all done.
Okay, so that's one way that you can use, work on answering questions with Articulation Station. I just wanted to show really quickly another way that you can work on answering questions with Articulation Station. Let me go back to Articulation Station here. Okay, and now I'm going to open up an example of the stories. We'll do level 1 medial voice TH story. So here again, you can ask, the nice thing about these stories is they basically have WH questions at the end of them. They also work on reading comprehension and listening comprehension. So here you can say, who does Heather play with in the nice weather? She plays with her brothers. What do Heather and her brothers play together? Tetherball. And what do Heather and her brothers share? They share a smoothie. And it's always fun to get that fun little reward at the end. So that is another way that you can work on answering questions in Articulation Station. So now we're going to talk about asking questions. The student will meaningfully use blank words, a blank word in is, are, do, does, who, what, when, why, how questions to obtain clarification and interact about pictures and stories during discussions. So here you can see, I actually used Articulation Test Center for this example. In Articulation Test Center, we have 3 different scenes you can choose from for obtaining a language sample. And I thought this would be a fun way to work on asking questions. And I used the same question cards I used in the previous example. So let me show you how Scarlett does with that. Okay, here we go.
Okay, Scarlett, we're going to open up a scene and you get to ask me the questions this time. Okay?
What questions? What will I ask you?
These questions, turn one over.
Oh, if I can't read them.
I'll help you. What? Okay, you get to make up a question about something in this picture using the word what.
I don't know what to do with the word.
Let me give you an example. So if you say, what color are those shoes?
So then where do you see what it is?
So you could ask me a question like, what is the boy throwing? And I would answer frisbee.
What color is the turtle?
The turtle is green. Good question.
I mean the shell.
Oh, the shell is brown.
Brown shell?
Okay, draw another card and let's see if you can come up with another question. When?
When?
That one is a little bit harder. Let's see if we can come up with a question for when.
When did the boy start flying a kite?
Ooh, that's a good one. When did the little boy start flying the kite? Let me guess. When it was windy?
June.
In June. Oh, darn, I was wrong. Okay, grab one more question. Who? Who? Okay.
Who tweeted in the trees left the spot on the planet?
Who tweeted in the trees? Good question. Let's see here. I think it was maybe the bird.
Yep, bird.
All right, those are great questions. Thank you, Scarlett.
Yeah.
Okay, so our speech samples are offered in the full test. You can go here and select speech sample and go next. Here you can choose from one of these 3 speech scenes. We'll choose Mountain Adventure this time. When the scene comes in, you can tap the lower left-hand corner to record. everything that is being said as you're exploring the scene, which is great for getting language samples, fluency samples, or again, working on fun things like asking questions. So you could have, like Scarlett was playing this with me the other day, and she was asking me questions like, or you can even play games like I Spy. This is actually what she wanted to play. And she said, where is the spider web? So it was my job to I had to try to find the spider web, and she thought she was being so clever and tricky. And the fun thing is when you tap on an object in the scene, it gets big. There's even question prompts below that you can use for language or just to keep the kids talking. So that's really fun. And that's another fun way to use the Scenes and Articulation Test Center for more than just a speech sample. So we will say, yes, we're done with the speech sample. At the end of every speech sample, you get to rate their intelligibility. And we'll come back and talk about that just a little bit more. We're gonna go on to the next goal here. So the next goal is intelligibility. And the student will use clear speech and at least multiple word sentences to retell a story, to describe a scene or a latent experience. So when I'm working on intelligibility, I use Articulation Test Center, just like I just showed you, to get a speech sample, or I can use the scenes that I just showed you, or sometimes I open up the scenes and just press record and I don't even show the child the screen at all, especially if I'm working with an older student or we've already done the scene several times. And I may pull out a storybook or toys or have them read aloud just so that I can get that speech sample. And now I'm going to go and show you in Articulation Station how you would score the intelligibility. Okay, so this is when we just did a speech sample and we were brought back to the results. You can see the speech sample that I just took in that last example right here. I'll go ahead and tap on that one at the top, and it brings us to our speech sample. Here, if you tap on the little play button,
that is being said,
you can listen to the speech sample that was just recorded, and then you can update their intelligibility by tapping good right there, and you can change it to a percentage if you want. So we'll tap on the percent. And when this comes up, as you listen to the speech sample, you can actually tap on the plus symbol for every word you understand and the minus for every word you don't understand. The nice thing about this is it makes it really easy to get an accurate intelligibility measure in real time. So that's one of my favorite features about the intelligibility portion in Articulation Test Center. The other nice thing is you can tap right in here and you can transcribe it if you want. You can take notes. In the example that we just did, I might just take notes about the WH questions that she was good at asking. Maybe she was really good at asking where, and that was the only one that we targeted for today. So I could maybe make a note of how many where questions she targeted, and then that would make it really easy to track my results there for her. So we're not going to update that for now. So that is how you track intelligibility in Articulation Test Center. So the next goal that we're talking about is articulation. Now this one was easy because I've been using Articulation Station and Articulation Test Center as examples of how to adapt therapy goals, but I am going to show you something else cool in Articulation Station. Because as you can see, the goal below says the student will use target sounds in isolation, syllables, words, phrases, sentences, and connected speech. So let's go back to Articulation Station, and I'm going to show you actually how to work on syllables in Articulation Station, since Articulation Station doesn't actually target syllables. So, okay, so we're going to leave Articulation Test Center for a minute. We're going to go back to Articulation Station. So if those of you that are familiar with Articulation Station, you know that Articulation Station targets words, phrases, sentences, and stories. And there are 2 activities at each level to target all of those. But if you come in here and you want to work on syllables, for example, then we need to be a little bit creative again. So this is when the custom image feature in Articulation Station comes in handy. And I should say really quickly, because I forgot to mention this previously, that custom images and custom lists and phonological processes, features like that are actually only available on the Pro version of Articulation Station. If you have purchased some sounds in Articulation Station, you can upgrade to Pro and it will unlock those features. So if those features are something that you're interested in, you might want to consider doing that. But let me show you really quick how to add a custom image in Articulation Station. You just tap on Custom Images, and then you tap right here to add. And then you can tap on this add image right here. At this point, you can select a photo or take a photo. We're gonna select a photo from our photo library. And we're gonna add this picture of a bow right here. Just size that up right there. Hit use, and we're gonna name it bow. You can make a phrase for it. Green bow. We can type a sentence for it. This is a bow. Okay. And then we can also record each one. So when the child goes through, if they want to listen to the audio recording, you can also make a quick audio recording, bow, and that will play back
Bow.
When you're using it in the activity. So now we're going to go ahead and save this to bow, sorry, not bow, to B initial, and we'll hit save. And now I'm going to show you, if you go into the B program, I also created some other images for B syllables. So we're going to go into our flashcards for initial, and we're going to hit our custom list icon again down there at the bottom. We're going to deselect all of our words except for B, since that's a nice syllable word. And we're going to select ba, bay, boo, bye, and bow. And these are all custom images that I added into the app. So now when we go into our program, I actually could have labeled this list B syllables. In fact, I think I have a custom list for it. I probably should have showed you. But so when you save your data, it will save data for B initial syllables. But the nice thing you can see here is I have a bay and a bow and a bee and boo and bye. And so that's a fun way to work on syllables. Another fun way to do it, I like to actually do them in the matching game. So I think here you can see my syllable list here. My B initial syllables, we'll work on it. Because then you get to work on them repeated. So if we go bye, bye boo, you know, that's a really good 2-syllable phrase that you can work on. You can do boo bay, or, you know, you've got boo boo. So that's really fun. The kids can work on that. So that's just another fun way to work on syllables in Articulation Station. I also wanted to show you that I talked previously about looking for apps that have video tutorials. So for any of you that are interested in video tutorials, if you own Articulation Station or Articulation Test Center, and I can show you an Articulation Test Center as well, but if you tap on the information button right here at the bottom of the screen, you can see that we have video tutorials right here. And you can watch video tutorials on just, you know, the whole app, on data collection specifically, on how to restore and back up your data, group sessions, custom word lists, and custom images. So if you have any questions about that in the future, that is a great resource. Another great thing about Articulation Station is we also target phonological processes. So you can see here that you can work on backing and flashcards, for example, and you've got, you know, banana and bed and panda, things like that that you can work on. Let's see here. I'm going to actually transfer over to Articulation Test Center really quickly. For those of you that are not familiar with Articulation Test Center, to give you just a quick overview of how you can use it for testing articulation and intelligibility. So Articulation Test Center has a screener and a full test. In the screener, you can test kids based on their age. So for 2-year-olds, 3 to 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, or 6-year-olds. And when you select an age, you can see that you're only testing the sounds that are age appropriate. And so it saves you a lot of time if you're testing a 2-year-old. You don't have to go through every sound target. So let me show you what a screener looks like. See, when the screener comes in, you can record the child saying the word. A new feature that we have added to Articulation Test Center is you only have to press record once, which is really nice. And it will actually chop up the audio and put it right next to that word. So here we have honey, comb, nose, mommy, and one. We're going to hit done. We want to add a speech sample right now? No. Now I'm going to go and show you really quickly. So this is what the results look like The nice thing is it also divides all of those words that we just tested, and you can see that down here we'll play audio.
Comb, nose, mommy.
Right there. So you can go back and listen to the results and make sure that you're happy with how you've scored them. If you want to make any changes, you can tap edit results in the upper right-hand corner. And go ahead and edit that. Since I didn't score the first time around, I can score now, and I can tap once. That would indicate an incorrect response. Tapping it again, that's an approximation. And tapping that again, that's correct again. If you want to mark an omission, you just swipe it up and off the screen, and that will mark an omission. If you want to mark a substitution, you just tap the down arrow, and you can drag and drop, oops, let's see here, a sound and drop it right on top. The other nice thing is it will automatically mark your phonological processes for you unless you don't want it to. If you don't want it to automatically mark the phonological processes, you can open up the settings really quickly and turn off auto marking of phonological processes right there. So if you want to mark the phonological processes yourself, you can actually tap on this phonological processes tab, and you could say that, you know what, that was not D voice. Oh shoot, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back. Open up our phonological processes. Okay, we could say that maybe, we'll make another substitution here. We'll say that they said a P there, and that was actually assimilation. So we could say that if we wanted to. You can also tap on all of your phonological processes, and you have reference information right there on the right for you, which is very helpful as well, especially if you're talking to a parent. You can also mark distortions if you want to. So you can open this up, and you can see that you can mark lisps or mild, moderate, or severe distortions, which is also nice. So really quickly, I'll show you the full test again. You can test everything, or you can test by sound position. So you could say, you know what, I've been working on final consonant deletions for the last 6 months, and you can test only the final sounds right there if you want to. Or you can test blends, or if you have an R kid coming in, you can test only the R sounds. The other nice thing is right up here in the red circle, it shows you how many targets will be tested. So that is a quick and dirty summary on Articulation Test Center. I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat. Okay. So let's see here. We're going to go ahead and quit, and we're going to go back to, oh, shit. Okay. Oh, let's go back actually to our results really quickly before we quit, so you can see some other cool features in Articulation Test Center. Let's see if I have it. Okay, so here you can see, here's a full test for Chris. You can see all of the words that were tested, all the processes that were marked. We talked about how the recordings are right there. If you go into the errors marked, it will divide all of your errors by age of development, which is really nice, and by sound position. It also separates all of your substitution errors and your phonological process errors as well. Here's your speech sample. I already showed you how the speech sample works. The other cool thing about Articulation Test Center is it summarizes all that results into a really well-written report for you right here that you can actually share with a parent. Let's see here if we tap email right here, how long that will take. Or you can print it off for a student's file, or share with another speech pathologist, or take to an IEP meeting, whatever. Let's see if this email is going to generate. Okay, all right, we're just gonna stop that. We also have recommendations right here. You can see it divides all of the sounds that are recommended based on the child's age and considered delayed, and the sounds that are the sound errors that were considered age appropriate based on their age. Another really cool thing about Articulation Test Center is you can, when you're looking at your results, you can see up here that these results are based on the Iowa, Nebraska articulation norms, which are actually norms that I added into Articulation Test Center. I can change those norms right here, and I can go back to the Articulation Test Center default norms if I want, and then it's going to report different ages because that's based on the default norms. But I think we have just a quick minute. I can show you the norms right here, that is actually how you add new norms. So to add new norms, you just tap right here. You can add the name of the norms that you want to use, so whatever your school district is using, who contributed the norms, and what research the norms are based on. And then to change an age, you can like quickly skip to the fricatives, and you can say, you know what, we have S mastered at age 6. So then in your results, all of the S errors will be reported as age appropriate until the age of 6. So that's just a really quick overview of Articulation Test Center. Okay, so I just wanted to end with this quote from Steve Jobs, which I absolutely love. It says, "Technology is nothing. What's important is that you have faith in people, that they're basically good and smart, and if you give them tools, they'll do wonderful things with them." I love this quote because apps are tools. They're not made just to entertain. They're made to make our lives easier, make us be more efficient in our jobs and more productive. And when you have a good app that can truly function as a therapy tool, you can do so much with it. So I hope today's presentation has given you some ideas. Maybe you can go back and look at some of your apps that you have on your iPad and think of ways that you can adapt them to meet more therapy goals than you've been using them for previously. Okay, that is my presentation for today. If you have any questions, let's go back to that. Okay, if you have any questions, you can contact me. I have all my information here. And let's go actually really quickly. I'm going to open up the questions and see, we have a few minutes, so I'm going to see if I can answer some of the questions. This says, can you back up the custom lists on Articulation Station or share them between your iPads on the same account? If you have multiple iPads and you are using the same Apple ID, then yes, you can back up your custom list. You can restore that backup on your other device, and you will have a custom list on that device as well. Okay, there's a question. Will we be putting language tutorials on the app in addition to the articulation tutorials? We will not be adding more video tutorials for language. I actually encourage you guys to use your creativity and imagination to see what else you can come up with. Instagram is a great place to get good ideas, though. I see people using it all the time to do fun and different things with not only Articulation Station, but other apps that they are using. So it's a good place to look. Description for childish. This one says, any suggestions for keeping track of which descriptions the child missed? Some of my kids are great. So what I would suggest, if you're using the app to target describing things, I would suggest that you record the child's response on each word, because that recording will be saved and associated with that word. And then when you go into Articulation Station, you can actually make a note of which word or which concept of describing the child struggled with. Let's see here. Oh, someone asked, how do you share your iPad screen? We actually use Reflector with AirPlay. Reflector is an app for the Mac that you can download, and you can use that to share your iPad screen. Let's see if we have time for a few more. Exported. Someone asked if the quality of the recording within the app is adequate for some basic acoustic analysis, and if so, can it be exported? I think that the quality is good. I don't know how in-depth your acoustic analysis is, but if you, it can be, the audio recordings can be shared and emailed, so give it a try. If you have any concerns, please contact us and let us know, and we'll see what we can do to help you out. Let's see here. Is there a way to save groups? So for those of you that have used Articulation Station and use it for group sessions, you cannot currently create a group and name that group and go back to that group every time. You actually do have to choose the kids in the group each time. So that's how, and I can, if I had more time, I would show you how to do that. Let's see here. What research norms do you use to determine the average age of acquisition? When you open up Articulation Test Center and you're looking at the errors that were reported, if you scroll to the bottom, you can actually see all of the research that we reviewed when we came up with the norms. And basically, we just looked at all the research, and after looking at the research, we used our clinical judgment and experience in addition to the research to come up with the norms. So the nice thing about it is you can continue to use articulation tests in your norms, or like I showed you, you can add in a specific norm set that maybe your school district recommends. Let's see here. Okay, let's see here. So some people say that they're interested in using the app via teletherapy. I actually have not used it specifically for teletherapy, but I think that using apps like Reflector, it would probably work quite well for teletherapy. So I would love to hear feedback from anybody if they have used Articulation Station for teletherapy. I do know it has been used because I did see on Teletherapist, there was a website for advertising teletherapy, and they actually had Articulation Station up on the screen. And so I know that it is being used. Can you print results from the screener in full test? Yes, you can print the results. So the way that you do that is you email the results to yourself and you print them from your email.